Welcome to another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Joining us on this week's show is BAPS Motor Speedway owner and Lincoln Speedway co-owner, Scott Gobrecht. Before we get to Scott, don't forget to check out EnTrust IT Solutions. EnTrust is a full-service technology company serving small and mid-sized businesses in New York, Pennsylvania, and surrounding areas. The staff at EnTrust IT Solutions takes a personalized approach to technology. See why customers are choosing EnTrust IT Solutions as their technology partner by scheduling a free consultation at www.entrust-msp.com or by calling 717-292-8868. Now here's Scott. Scott, welcome to the deep dive. I appreciate you coming on Thursday.
Oh, you're welcome. It's quite an honor, Jeremy. Thank you for asking.
No problem. Obviously you've kind of burst onto the what I would say sprint car scene, racing scene in 2015 with BAPS Motor Speedway, and also now owning a piece of Lincoln Speedway. You owned a car, but before that, when did you first get into racing? Because I don't think people know much about you before that. What kind of, is it something you did as a child? You went, were you involved with it with family? How did that all transpire?
For me, it started in high school. I lived rather close to Stevie Smith. We walked to school together. My youngest brother, Kevin, was the first one to sort of get the racing itch. He had bought a used go-kart from Stevie. We lived right down the road, so we spent quite a bit of time at their race car shop growing up. We spent a lot of time at Hunterstown Speedway, all three of us. But Kevin was the first one. It didn't take long for all three of us to be racing. We raced at Hunterstown together a lot. We had some really good times racing as brothers. I really felt like it was good for us as individuals because we spent time together. We were at a place where things mattered. Mom and dad didn't have to worry about us being at the wrong place at the wrong time on a Saturday night. And as things went on, I was the first one to sort of step out of the go-kart world. I moved up to micro sprints. Back then, they were just called micro sprints. They weren't 270s or 600s. That's all there was. And because I was the oldest, I was probably the first one to move out. And then Brian and Kevin came along after that. We raced micros together. I went back to go-karts for a while. Did a lot of road racing. I really loved racing go-karts on asphalt, especially places like Summit Point. And then got into legend cars. A good friend of mine, Chad Glaufetter, turned me on to that. But pretty much my whole life, it's been racing. Doing it with my brothers has been fun. My mom is a huge part of it all. My dad's been supportive along the way, but you just don't see him at the track much. But that he's my hero. He'll do anything for anybody, and he's helped us a lot along the way. So my story kind of evolves from that. I still love going to Hunterstown. Our family business, Golf Cart Services, is right down the road. So if ever going up that way, I always swing in to kind of check out the old place.
Everybody knows Kevin. Did you ever beat him? That's the question. Did you ever win those battles?
Not often. He was tenacious. It didn't matter that we shared the same DNA. He was out there for a purpose, for a reason. And even Brian, Brian was every bit as good as Kevin. He really was. Brian just took a different approach, a different path. But yeah, go-karts, we did a lot of cool stuff with go-karts. Probably my fondest memory is they would have an annual race at Hagerstown Speedway, which is kind of unusual for go-karts to be on a big half mile. And we always kind of ran good down there. The one year we ran first, second, and third. That was kind of a cool night. But we celebrated a lot of championships, a lot of wins. And I'm not saying Hunterstown's different now, but back then it was really something special about Hunterstown because you go out there to race, you're lining up against Stevie Smith, Mark Smith, Chris Esch and his brothers, the Shepherd brothers. I mean, it was really, really something special back then. And I'm not saying it isn't now, because I just don't know the names that much. But back then, when you raced against those guys, you really learned a couple things, and it was neat to see those guys progress. A lot of Ward of Outlaw wins came out of those couple names we just talked about there.
Now, you kind of stayed in those divisions. Like you said, you went into Legends and whatnot. Kevin really took off. He got into the 410 sprint cars. He did well locally. Obviously, we know about the 2 wins in 24 hours. And we know all about that.
3 wins.
3 wins. I'm sorry. Yes. 3 wins in 24 hours. I misspoke. ends up on with the Outlaws. He's racing on the road. Uh, what was it like watching his journey up through the ranks and having so much success at a time when, let's face it, it was more difficult in central Pennsylvania then than now? And then also on the road going against those guys. What was it like? Because you were a close knit family.
It was special. We really did it as a family. Actually, obviously Kevin drove the car, but Brian did a lot of the mechanical work. I helped quite a bit back then too, mechanically wise. We did a lot of fundraising to keep that sprint car going. Our business was still in its infancy back then, so it's never easy to race this 410 sprint car, and it was pretty hard for us back then. As we did fundraisers and helped with sponsorship, we just kind of did it together, and it was just a natural extension of what we did. In Hunterstown, we helped each other. You know, micro sprints, we helped each other, and the 410 sprint cars are different. But then, just like in a blink of an eye, Kevin's risen to another level. He's winning races. Season opener at Williams Grove. The 3 races in 24 hours. The Outlaw win in his Emco car.
Yeah.
It felt normal. Because it's just what we always did. Brian and I were by his side. Mom was always there. Dad was doing anything he had to do. Dad was keeping the business going back then, but he'd come to the track when he could. It's just the way we always did it.
And it took some time. It wasn't like I think, and I did something today on the crouch deal with CJB. And I think we've been spoiled by guys like Kofoid and Day and Sells who win like right out of the gate as teenagers. It took Kevin some time, but once he got it, boy, it took off.
Yeah, I don't want to say it was just a matter of time. I think his skill set from driving, his aggressiveness, his passion was there. It was a big learning curve with the car. It really was, and a lot of little things went wrong. I remember, really the opener ever. It was a daytime race at Lincoln Speedway. He looked like a fish out of water, and there was high expectations because he was coming out of the micro sprint world. Well, he was recognized a couple years as being one of the winningest drivers in the Northeast. He just did a lot of cool stuff. Well, that first couple races in Lincoln, he was struggling, but the brakes weren't quite right. There's little things that we didn't know what we didn't know back then. But once all that stuff came together, and Kevin really took the lead on this next part, once he started networking with a lot of the people that helped him back in the day, the Groff family, Steve Siegel, just all these people that really kind of took Kevin under his wing, that accelerated that learning curve. That's when it really started taking off. And then he got the recognition of John and Pee Wee and Bob Stewart and some of the different cars. He drove the Cooper car. The Cooper car
Yes.
was a special car back then, and it was neat to be part of all of that.
And he started winning on the road a little bit.
Yeah. He was not afraid to travel. He liked getting out there. I think he did it as much to network as he did just to experience new tracks. 1998, we did Ohio Speed Week. I lasted about 4 or 5 days, and I'm like, I don't know how these guys are doing it. I don't know how these guys do it now. Racing 70, 80 times a year, but we traveled a lot, and it was fun. Our family vacation pretty much every year for Labor Day, we would go to Lernerville on Friday night. We'd stay in a hotel in Butler, PA, and then we go to the Sharon Nationals in Youngstown, Ohio, Saturday, Sunday. We did that for a lot of years. Not really competitive at that point, but we just did it as a family. It was kind of our time away.
So obviously, we all know what happened. Tragedy. He lost his life in an accident out. I forget even where it was. But how difficult was that time for you guys? Because again, the family unit for the Gobrecht families, and I noticed that even today, it's all, if I see one, I usually see all of you. So I know how, if you can, the best you can, kind of put all that into words and how difficult of a time that was for your mom, for you, for Brian, your dad. Uh, I think sometimes we forget that there's families behind these guys and how difficult that is.
Yeah, obviously it was tough. Back then, it was well before social media. You just kind of find out on the phone. You kind of talk among yourselves. Didn't really have a feel for the enormity of him passing, really until we had the memorial service here in New Oxford, and I still remember it today. Going to the event, and there was traffic control, the fire police were there. I mean, there was a lot of people there. That's when you really realize the impact that he had. And it was tough then. It's tough now. It really is. I can't imagine how my parents did it. I cannot imagine bearing a child. I have a great son. Mitchell's 30 years old. I don't know how mom and dad did it, but they had the foresight and the will to create the Kevin Gobrecht Memorial Fund, which took something not so good and made it something really good. We've created this memorial fund. It's been funded over the years by all of the support of race teams and fans and sanctioning bodies and speedways. And every single nickel that went into that fund has stayed there. And we've paid out scholarships and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of scholarships. So what mom and dad did back then was special. I'm proud to, I kind of run point on it now as my parents get up there in age. And it's neat to see it happen. I was at the World Outlaw Banquet Sunday night. Every time you hear Johnny Gibson say the Kevin Gobrecht, Rookie of the Year award, really, really is special. I mean, Johnny's a good friend of mine. So to hear him saying it, but just to have Kevin be recognized like that, it really means a lot. But I'll never know. And I hope I never know. And I hope a lot of people don't know what my mom and dad went through to bury a child.
What's been amazing to me is it's easy to be forgotten by time. Time moves on. I said I was the other day, people were putting an asterisk next to David Gravel's title. And I said that won't be remembered in 3, 5, 10 years. Nobody will care. Your brother is definitely still remembered. And it's amazing to me. And I think it's a tribute to what he meant to the sport that he is still remembered. And the support from the fans then and now really is amazing.
It is. And we held an annual golf outing. We do it in conjunction with the Williams Grove National Open. We just did the 25th one, and we have to turn people away. It's 26 years later, and we're turning people away. It's just the support that we get. And, that's one of the main financial drivers of the Memorial Fund now. And as people come out, they take a day off work, they come out and spend it with my family. And it means a lot to see my parents have a good time. That's sort of how I judge how the event went. It isn't so much, hey, we raised this much money or we had this many golfers. It's like, how big are the smiles from mom and dad? And it really goes well. And it's a neat fabric of the event because there'll be people there that Kevin went to high school with. There's, they come out once a year, and there'll be a group that Kevin went to college with, and then a group from go-karts, a group from micro sprints. It just really brings back the people from the past. It's almost like a little reunion. We're just swinging golf clubs as part of it.
Something when we talked off air, I didn't know you were the oldest.
Yeah.
I didn't know how old Brian was. That's why I didn't know.
Yeah, we're mom and dad were busy. The three of us are 4 years apart. So I'm the oldest, Brian's in the middle, and Kevin was the youngest.
I just had to get in there that you're the oldest.
Yeah. I'm the most mature. Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly. And I also noticed the Miami Dolphins thing on the back wall there. I have a Dallas one. I feel your pain, buddy.
Hey, at least we won Monday night.
Yeah, you know what? It's still in better shape than Dallas. They're terrible, that organization. But nevertheless, so you go all these years then, and I believe around 2013, you got the bright idea to get into sprint car ownership and to own a team. Are you nuts? What made you kind of get into that?
I wish I could remember back then exactly what it was. I feel like it was just the thing to do. Love the sport. When we created the sprint car team, it was really just to give young gentlemen a chance that maybe wouldn't have a chance. And our first race was Eric Tomaszak, and then Chase Dietz. Just guys that were doing real well at lower divisions that probably would have got to where they wanted to anyways because they had the passion. But I feel like we helped a little bit, giving them that step. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. A lot of work, a lot of money. But we did it 10 years, won 9, 10, 11 races, met a lot of great people. And I'm real proud of what we did.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Dietz, when you look at Chase Dietz now, I think he might be one of them over the last two years, maybe, since he's been in his own car, probably one of the most improved performers in the central Pennsylvania region. When you look at that and you look at what Trey Starks is doing on the West Coast, you got to have a sense of pride that they came through your car.
I do. I do. Trey and I stay rather close. I mean, I had a partner in Jeff McCall
Yep.
when Trey and I raced together, and unfortunately, Jeff just passed away. So Trey and I have been talking a lot more through that. And the Dietz family, I mean, I've known them forever. Dad Tim and I raced go karts together. So it is really neat to see them where they're at. I really think a guy like Tim, like Chase D, he was going to get there whether I was able to help or not. But it was nice to be able to be part of it, to kind of be the catalyst maybe to get them started. But it is rather rewarding, and I love Chase's approach to the business. He knows that this is a sponsor driven sport. It's about relationships, and he really works hard on that, and that fuels everything else. And then, he keeps himself in great shape, and his approach to how he performs on the racetrack, it's really starting to show this year. And, there's bigger things to come for him.
Yeah, we might have some news on him later in the week. Don't know yet, but that's a teaser. Yeah, I had Dylan Norris in there as well. Like I said, Trey Starks, Chase Deeds, Eric Tomasek. Uh, you were doing it for 10 years. Did it just run its course? I know you're busy with golf cart services, which I'll talk about a little later. I never knew golf carts was a big business, but I learned that it is. So, did it just run its course? I mean, obviously expenses go up and whatnot, and you're a busy guy, which again, I'll get to that in a minute as well. But was that just the case? It was just time.
Yeah, it was just time, and probably one of the motivating factor was the speedways, especially this the addition of Lincoln Speedway, because before that, I could really go to the races and be part of it. And then, once you got a couple of things going on, you just can't. And then, what really happened at Lincoln, especially at Lincoln, is I would find myself maybe catching part of the feature, warm ups maybe, but I rarely watch the heats, because there's so many things that happen that people don't see. Yeah. With taking care of your patrons and concession stands and employees, and just a lot of stuff happens behind the scenes. And we want to be focused on that, because that's our role that night, is to provide the best environment for our race teams and our fans in the stands. So I'd miss Dylan running the heat. I'd miss, well, it's really just Dylan, because I wasn't as busy back then with, and then I catch part of the feature. It wasn't as much fun anymore, because you didn't get to really enjoy why you put the car in the first track, was to watch it race and cheer for it.
In 2015, because a car wasn't enough. No, you decided to buy a Speedway. Todd Fisher was selling out. You purchased then Susquehanna Speedway, and eventually BAPS Motor Speedway. What made you get into track ownership? Now, I know you have a connection. I believe you have a connection to Hilly Rife from back in the day. I don't know if
Yes.
you were related to him. What was he to you? And also, did that kind of get you, I don't know, something internally to make you want to buy a Speedway? Because at that point, you had to know the economics of it are tough.
Yeah, I mean, just to take two steps back, my journey really started. I was racing legend cars, and the local series is Central Pennsylvania Legends. It's since changed to a different name, East Coast Legends. But yep. I was racing in it, and Don Stevens, who had the series, was at a point in his life where he just didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to move down to the Carolinas, and it looked like it was going to sort of fall apart. And he asked me if I'd be willing to step in, and it just didn't feel right. But a good friend of mine, Ed Trump, who has Baker Door Company, said, "Hey, let's do it together." So Ed and I got involved with the series. And because of that, Ed sort of took care of the parts side, and I took care of the scheduling side. So I ended up interacting with a lot of these speedways, including Susquehanna, developed a relationship with Todd Fisher. And where it really started with Todd and I is he had what back then was called the Dirt Track and Show.
Yep.
He was looking to sort of divest that, move away from that. So we talked about what it looks like to buy the show, and we had worked that out. And I'll never forget this. We're at a Mexican restaurant on Route 30 in York, and we pretty much had the deal done. And Todd says, "Well, now we did this, you might as well just buy the Speedway."
Yeah, why not?
I thought he was kidding, but the door cracked open, so I nudged it a little bit farther, and we started talking about it. And a little bit later, we ended up having what's now known as BAPS Motor Speedway.
Now, you decide to bring in Colton Gauss, which I knew Colton while he was on the road, and he did the National Open auction, and sharp guy. What made you choose him to be the general manager? What stood out about Colton that made you? Because you obviously you couldn't run it yourself because you have golf cart services. You needed a GM. What made you take Colton?
Well, just to talk about golf cart service real quick, when the opportunity presented itself, we do pretty much everything as a family. So my dad was involved, my brother was involved with the decision making process, and one of the asks for them both was, "Hey, we need you to stay focused on golf cart services. That's our priority." So I thought the only way I can do that is to have a general manager. It was really important to me to have somebody that woke up every morning thinking about BAPS Motor Speedway. I wake up thinking about golf cart services for the most part. Um, my journey with Colton started, ironic enough, what you mentioned, the National Open benefit. He did an incredible job with that event and really, really grew it. But as he traveled the country, he needed sort of a home base back here. And I was helping Colton a little bit on the side. Well, he needed somebody to basically manage the checkbook and take care of things. And we decided that my mom would be a good fit for that. So she basically helped him out back home while he's out, working for Casey Kane Racing. And throughout all of that, I got to know him, and I feel like I was looking around, and Todd Fisher had a couple suggestions, and I just kept going back to Colton, and I called him one day, and I said, "Hey, here's what I'm doing. Kind of keep between you and I because it's not out there yet, but who do you think would be a good fit?" Which you know how that works. You ask somebody that you want to come work with you to who do you think would be a good fit, and it just started the conversation. I knew he was well connected. I knew he had a passion for racing. It meant a lot that I was able to bring him back to his hometown. His dad, if it's not 10 times a year, it's 20, thanks me and reminds me for bringing his boy home. He just didn't get to see Colton how much he traveled a lot. So we ended up working a deal out with Colton. The one thing I didn't realize with all this is that, and then Justin Adams, who Colton worked for, Casey Kane Racing, told me this after the fact. He goes, "That guy is a working machine." He goes, "You're going to have to put a cot in at the Speedway because he's never going to go home." And boy, was he right. I mean, Colton has a strong skill set, but more importantly, he is just a work ethic that is impeccable. I couldn't do what he does 7 days a week. It's cleaning a bathroom, picking up trash, negotiating a national sanction body coming to the series. He's truly an asset. And I feel blessed that, over the years, he was kind of a one-man show, but we built a little bit of a team around him now. Donnie Labby is with us at BAPS Motor Speedway. Becky, who works in the office part-time, but she's there a lot, very impactful to the positive of our business. And my mom helps a lot too. So I feel like we're building a little bit of a team around him. And my girlfriend, April, she's really stepping up to help out too, because these things are a lot of work. And the work for the people I just mentioned there, it's more so not during race night, because on race night, your staff comes in. There's 40, 50, 60
Right.
people that come in. You kind of count on them, but it's all the stuff that happens during the week that really is impactful to the business. And we have a good team to support Colton now.
It's the transformation of the Speedway from when you bought it to now. I say this joke to Colton, and might not go over well, but you could have tested missiles there. Now, the place, I mean, through his deals, his vision, your vision, uh, I hear it when I go outside the area. You see it on some podcasts now about BAPS, what it looks like, the improvements, how it races, and it being one of the better tracks in the area. That's got to make you feel pretty good. And because it's also been a short amount of time. 10 years is not long. I think people think, 10 years, oh my God, that's a lot of time. No, it really isn't. 30 years isn't a long time. It goes by quick, but this track's come so far. And I've always said it on my podcast, it's my favorite track in PA. So it definitely, even though I've been hard on you sometime, but but
That makes you better.
I'll tell the one story in a minute, but because it's funny. But you got to be proud how far you've come.
I really am, and I'd like to start off answering that by just talking about Todd Fisher. I mean, he did a great job with that facility. Todd didn't have a golf cart service or a
Right.
business to back him up. He just he did a great job keeping it going, keeping it relevant, and I think he had it 14 years, and it was just time. And he was great to work with during the transition, and even after the fact. Todd moved away. I hadn't seen him for a whole lot, but we just had lunch a couple month or so ago. He was up in the area. I tried to run into him down in Charlotte. We were in the same area. We just couldn't see each other. So I think Todd gets a lot of credit. But beyond that, it was a lot of luck. It was a lot of relationships. The reason we keep saying BAPS Motor Speedway so much is because of the folks at BAPS Auto Paint.
Yeah.
The Berkheimer and the Hoax family. They're one of the main reasons, really are, that place has grown what it has. They've supported us with dollars, and we did a 5-year naming rights agreement, which was renewed for another 5 years a year or so ago. They've supported us with advice. Dean and I are close. He calls me out when things don't go right and gives me things to improve. I like that about him, and just all the support around that. We see that with the new McGrew Motorplex track we built. We have a lot of support from people there too. So it is proud, but I feel like we got a little lucky too. I mean, the grandstands at Susquehanna were in need of a little bit of love, and just about the time we got it is when all the NASCAR tracks were tearing down their bleachers, and we end up coming across a pretty good deal where we brought some bleachers up from the NASCAR tracks and replaced their front stretch, and that I don't think that was going to be. That wasn't really our plan, was to be so capital improvement heavy. But once we got started on it, we just never stopped. And it was kind of easy because, I have to write the checks, but Colton has to implement all of it, and he has to, work it through. And he rarely says no to anything. We want to put muscle lights up. It's a lot of work. You got to get all these things done, permitting and whatnot. He stands alongside and makes that happen. So, and we're not done yet. We're talking, some preliminary discussions about adding some more suites, doing a grandstand renovation at the track. We just want to keep going. Financially, it is not the best plan to sink so much money into these things, but I just love the sport, and I love the fact that my mom and dad wanted the property. They're proud about it, and that means a lot to me. At the end of the day, I don't think we'll get out of BAPS in a good financial position. That doesn't matter. It's there to prop the Speedway up and hopefully put it in a situation where it'll be there for a lot of years to come.
When you first signed the naming rights to BAPS, I don't think people realize you were like only one of 3 tracks in the country to have a naming rights deal like that. And I definitely think that's a huge deal. I'll never forget the first sprint car race that you guys ran. Sunny day. It was a Sunday, and you started an hour late. And I hate when people start late. And I remember, because I'm friends with both of you, and I walked up and said, guys, I got to kill you for this on the podcast. But you both said, we know. You guys do a good job, I think, of embracing what's wrong and trying to fix it. And you own it. When you had a dust problem, you guys came out, you said, you apologized, you fixed it. Not only in racetracks, and I push this a lot, obviously in racing, but in real world business, owning the mistakes and fixing it. Is that something that kind of a mantra you brought over from golf cart services?
Yeah, I would say that, and maybe alongside with just an incredible focus on the customers. Without the customers, and that customer could be a race fan, that customer could be a sponsor, it could be a race team. Obviously, we just have to focus on that. And a dusty racetrack is not good for any of the people we just talked about there. So, and I think what really helps too is I've raced a lot in different divisions at different tracks. Colton's been all over the country.
Yeah,
he sees what's out there and how it can be changed to get to where there's good ones out there and there's bad ones. How do we move away from being a bad one? How do we move into being a good one? It's there. And if half the battle is knowing where you want to go, then you figure out how to get there. Well, we know where we wanted to go. We just wanted to be one of the better tracks in this area. And dust we're still not out of the woods with dust yet, but it's so much better
Oh,
than it was before.
yeah, no, you've moved out of it because you're not busy enough, and because you weren't a in sprint car racing enough. You purchase in or you buy into Lincoln Speedway. Alan Kreitzer is looking to move on, and the trio of you, Mike Hefner, and Jerry Parrish purchased Lincoln in, I believe, January of 2019, something like somewhere around there. Um, did your family think you were nuts?
They thought I was nuts the first time, and then the second time too. But the second one probably wasn't as surprising. My family has a long history with Lincoln Speedway. You mentioned it earlier. There's a relationship. Hilly Rife, who built the track, his son Hilly Rife Jr. is my uncle. So my mom's sister, Aunt Connie, married Hilly Rife. So I'm have cousins that are Rifes. I have aunts that are Rifes, and my mom and dad worked there when I was a kid. We used to spend a lot of time there. I tell this story a lot. I remember, one of my memories back there was I figured out how to make the music go through the speakers. I'm just this little kid, and back then you had to put the record on the turntable, put the needle on the record, and I think I played the national anthem over the speakers. And one time Uncle Hilly was working on the track on a Sunday, and we raced go-karts at Hunterstown the night before. We took our go-karts down on a Sunday and drove around Lincoln Speedway in our go-karts. It was the coolest thing. So just kind of grew up at that place. My mom and dad worked in the concession stand. It was just a neat place. And it's real close. From where I live, I can hear Lincoln Speedway. I live close to the facility, and really excited to be part of it. The Legend Car Series goes back to, building a relationship with Alan Kreitzer, because I would work with Alan on scheduling things. And I'm really proud of the relationship that I developed with Alan. Just talked to him last night. He's helped me so much. He's such a good guy. I mean, the popularity of Central PA is really due to Alan Kreitzer.
Yes.
And more importantly, there's the tree he's created below him. He's helped so many people. Steve O'Neill used to work for Alan Kreitzer. Justin Lowe and Alan are close. It just, Alan's just he's the key to this area. And just be able to work alongside him for 5 years. He gave us 5 years of his time at Lincoln Speedway before he stepped away, but he's still there. I call him. We talked about Speed Week this week, and any advice we need, Alan's the first one I call. It really is. He's been there, done that.
Yeah. We talk about the legendary promoters in central Pennsylvania, and he's right at the top. I know. I mean, he definitely deserved to be in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. So, which he was inducted recently. So, definitely worthy. Um, Kind of a sticky subject because, well, that's what I do. Uh, you were offered recently. This is public knowledge now. Somebody wanted to buy the Speedway. Copart wanted to buy the Speedway, and this is happening across the country. And you turned it down. And Copart, just so people understand, they don't just offer the value, they go higher. Okay. Why'd you turn it down?
That was a tough one. The valuation of that property was literally 3 or 4x of what it was as a racetrack. So it was tough. But a couple things. By far the most important was my mother. She's a big part of BAPS, and I really feel like it helps keep her young. Well, I can't say my mom's age, or I'll get smacked in the head. But mom's she looks a lot younger than she is. She really, and I feel like that track's helped her. She loves the people. She loves being up there. She's not a fan of the drive. Her and I spent some time together last night, and the drive's becoming problematic, especially driving at night. But that was the biggest one. Mom said, I'll never stand in your way if you want to get rid of it, but that wouldn't be my preference. So that was part of it. Not far behind that was Colton. When I talked to Colton, it was kind of a teary-eyed conversation. And Colton, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he lives at the track, so it would have meant a big change for him. He would have lost his occupation, he would have lost his home. And then the third one is just that community. There's something special about that community up there. They're known as Bald Hill. There's so many cool people up there. J.R. Rodriguez, Mike Dank, Claire Wintermeyer. And I know I'm missing some names up there that really made that place special. Smokey Fry. When we bought that place, we started ripping and tearing. And next thing you know, we had 20, 30 local people coming in to help us out. So I felt like I would have been letting them down a little bit too, because a lot of them live within earshot of the track. And all of a sudden, this thing that they kind of held with such high esteem would have turned into what I imagine would be a glorified salvage yard. I don't know what Copart's business model really is, but it just didn't make sense. And, it was a lot of money. And then, I think about it a lot, and there's, a little bit of regret, but not much. I just love what we're doing there. And it's someday, it'll be somebody else's to take care of. And I'm going to love handing it off to somebody in the state that it's in, not just selling it to a multi-billion-dollar company. It's just a pin drop on a map for them.
You mentioned the community, and no other track in this area, and really no other track that I'm aware of. I mean, outside the area, I obviously don't know what's going on in Wyoming, but I do know what's going on in central Pennsylvania. No track in this area is involved in the community as much as BAPS Motor Speedway. Obviously, that's something Colton cultivates. He's at parades. He's at Jubilee Day. He's in the schools. He goes down to Franklin County and he's doing something, I guess, at the VOTEC down there. It's a day. I mean, this isn't just, obviously you want to expand your business through those avenues, but you guys take a huge interest in the community, and it's a very community-based facility. Lantern Fest, other things going on there. Is that, I mean, is that something you look at and as very advantageous for the Speedway and something that's good for the community as well?
I really do. I mean, there's so much support there. And I'll let's go back to JR Rodriguez. JR's occupation by day, he's in the paving business. And if we ever need anything done, JR's there. I mean, it's almost like clockwork. When we have a big event coming in, say the Outlaws are coming in, JR usually shows up with a truckload of stone and a skid steer and goes and improves part of the property for us. So it's a lot of great people up there. And I think that's kind of our call to action. I feel like we need to work hard at connecting with those folks because they're so good to us that we do those things that we do. And it starts with those people, and they're fun to be around with. They really are. I mean, they're just, they let us know we don't do so good because it's their home, it's their backyard. But
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they'll stand alongside us and fight any fight we have to fight. They're there for us, and they're just good people. And it feels good when you can run a race and make some people smile. And especially when they're local like that.
And you do a book fair at the local elementary school. I mean, there's just so many contributing factors to that community.
We just did a circus
Oh yeah,
this
that's
year
right.
for the first time ever. Yeah, it's and that's just fun too. We all know the demographic of our sport is aging, so we try real hard to. And Colton gets the credit. I'm just speaking about it. We try hard to connect with the schools to get the young individuals to think about coming out to us on a Saturday night. Hope they bring a friend who brings a friend, and it keeps growing the sport. It's just fun. I know I use that word too much, but it's just that's what life's too short not to have fun. So might as well, if you're gonna do something on a Saturday night, it might as well be fun.
Because you, again, weren't busy enough, you guys decided to build a micro track, and you had to jump through some hoops to get it, obviously. But, and then once you got it approved, everything went through, McGrew bid was born. It's on the property. It's a micro track. I've been there a couple nights shooting pay-per-view. Nice facility. I didn't know how you guys were going to fit it back there behind the regular Speedway, but Colton did a fantastic job. Why a micro track? What made you go that direction?
Um, Grew up racing micros, so always kind of followed them. When you look at it sort of a business plan, you always want to have a feeder system for your different racetracks. So we had a quarter midget track back there. We didn't see a lot. We saw some and not a lot of drivers making their way from the quarter midget track to the big track. And about the same time we were thinking about this, the junior sprints were sort of born that, kind of lets those young kids that were maybe racing quarter midgets race a junior sprint. And our hope is, kids come in and race a junior sprint. That takes them up to roughly 12 years old. Then they hop in a micro sprint and they can run out to their 15 or 16 or to the 35. But when they want to step out of that, we're hoping that they step into something that runs on the big track. We hope that they like the culture we have there, the team we have in place, the facility. So that's kind of our plan of attack there. But go back to sponsorship again. Hyper Racing isn't all that far from McGrew Bid Motorplex. Mike and Christy Dicey have been big supporters, mainly with knowledge and expertise, really helping us out. And then Greg McGrew and his team at McGrew Auctions, McGrew Bid, they own Bobcat stores. Greg really supports us too. And we have long-term relationships in place for both of them, which gave us the comfortability it took to make such a big investment. I'm glad we got it done. I thought it'd be challenging. I didn't think it was challenging. It was, but we worked real hard. Colton did. We had solid relationships in place with the township, and we made sure that we addressed their needs when they told us what they were. And at the end of the day, we were able to get it open
in short order too. That thing was built quick. And again, credit to Colton for the amount of hours he spent there. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Obviously, golf cart services, we've mentioned it a number of times. Compare running a business. I keep using the term real world because sometimes racing, it's different. Compare golf cart services to running a racetrack. Are you even now, years later, 10 years later, are you still learning? And like I said, compare those two businesses and maybe some of the differences.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still learning, and I'm glad I am. That should be a big part of your day, is us just always trying to learn something and improve yourself. There's some similarities there, and by far the biggest one is people. You're only good as the people you surround yourself with. I have a great team here at Golf Cart Services. We did a new experiment 4 or 5 years ago. We have a general manager in place, which has really freed up some time for Brian and I to get away and enjoy some things like this. But if you get the right people in place, you keep them happy, you pay attention to them, you keep them motivated. That's the key to everything. At both businesses we're talking about, whether it's Speedways or Golf Cart Service, it's just attention to detail, and it's taking care of your customer. At BAPS Motor Speedway, we're selling a ticket. Golf Cart Services, we're selling a golf cart. As long as you address the need of your customers, good things normally end up working out. And I couldn't do any of this stuff without Golf Cart Services. I couldn't do any of this stuff without my family, especially my dad. My dad built the baseline for Golf Cart Services to grow, and I'm real proud of what we've grown into. We're one of the larger distributors in the Easy Go network. We're one of their premier vendors. We just do a lot of good thing. The team we have in place is awesome. I love interacting with them. It's just a lot of fun.
What are some of the things, or let's put it this way, I know you love racing. I know you're passionate about racing. Are there nights though where it can be frustrating sometimes? You're dealing with obviously you're dealing with fans, you're dealing with social media, you're dealing with drivers. Do you love it as much as you used to? Do you kind of still have that passion for it like you used to when you first got into it? Because it can wear you down.
I do. And, the passion's still there. The love's still there. It's a little different now that you're into it. You start paying a little more attention to the business side of it. There at the beginning, we made decisions based on passion. We made decisions that probably didn't have any financial background before. Our schedule, a lot of times we would just schedule what felt right. Now we're starting to look at individual events, how the numbers played out that night, some of the feedback we got from our fans, and we're sort of tailoring our schedule to that a little bit. But yeah, still love it. You have to, you really do. Because, these are not businesses that have a high rate of return, if there is one at all, if I can say that nicely. You just do it because you love it. And it's cool too. It's one of the coolest things I can remember is the first time I got to turn the lights on at BAPS Motor Speedway, just to hit that. Well, back then it was a set of breakers. You turn those breakers on and see the whole place come alive. It made you feel just how special it is. And it's really cool to be standing up top on that, the perch where your pay-per-view comes from, and to see things unravel, and you look throughout the facility and you see 20 officials and 10 EMS guys all doing their job. You see a concession stand, busy down there taking care of customers. You see people coming and going. You see the midway out front with the food vendors. They're busy having a good time. You see the fans cheering, Dietrich's going at it with Raymer. You see that. It's kind of cool to be part of that stuff. It really is. And I'll go back to life's too short. If all you want to do is try to save money for a rainy day, let's live it a little bit. These things cost a lot of money. A lot of times the return isn't there for it, but we still keep doing it. Colton, he could probably make more money somewhere else, but he stays there because he loves it. And he really cares about the race teams and the fans. It's tough, especially towards the end of the year. you kind of get downtrodden. But it's our job to keep our head up and keep plowing through and just keep the positivity the best that we can.
It's funny. I keep stats on all the speedways, and your 410 events, you're averaging about 37, 38 cars. It's the highest in the area. And granted, you're not running 25 events, but you're at 9. And these events are doing really, really well in a business that fluctuates. Every other track is down a couple or more. BAPS Motor Speedway's up. In your mind, why?
To your point, less is more, and we don't run that much. So I think guys come out a little bit better to support it. We are on a standalone night. We're not a Saturday night where there's 2 tracks running at the same time. Colton's done a great job of putting together a nice sponsorship package. RV, the Smay family from the Mechanicsburg there. We had a sponsor event last night. They were there. They were real happy. They signed up for next year again.
Good.
They really helped us, put a nice points fund in place. Just when you do it once a month, twice a month, I think like there's a little higher call to action for that. And we have a solid base. Our Saturday night program, watching those sportsmen race at BAPS Motor Speedway, it's really something cool. It's like the track's made for them and they're made for the track. It's some great racing. The late models have really come on. The support divisions really come on. So it all feeds together. A little bit more about the sprint cars. One of our goals at the beginning was to get on the Pennsylvania Speed Week calendar, and it's hard. And I thought we might get on kind of at the beginning, and we didn't. And I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I don't think we were ready until year 3 or 4. There's a lot of things that come into play. You got to be able to park people. You got to be able to feed people. You got to be able to take care of them in bathrooms. And we might not have been there. And then, a couple of years of Speed Week got us ready for the outlaw race. And now we have 2 outlaw races under our belt. And we're doing bigger events now. We just held the U.S. Legends Dirt Nationals, had 80 some cars from all over the country. And we did a real good job. It was a multi-day event. So it just took us a while to get our legs underneath us. And I think we're ready for this kind of stuff now.
Going to fire some industry stuff at you a little bit. High limit outlaws. This seems to be a common thing. We're now into it. We're going to go into the 3rd year. The first year, high limit was a 10 race series. Now it's a national series. You guys probably were one of the tracks that were looked at for both, and you went with the World of Outlaws. Where do you see this all going? Why did you choose the Outlaws? Obviously, I know you have a relationship with them at Lincoln, but how do you see this whole thing going? And do you think, sprint car racing can have both?
Competition is good. It really is. It's proven now that they can handle 2 national series. I think they're still trying to figure out how to interact together.
Yeah.
And they'll get there. For me, it was kind of an easy decision. I feel like we were one of the more coveted tracks by High Limits. They reached out a couple times, and it was great talking with them and seeing where they were at. But at the end of the day, what the Outlaws did by honoring my brother for the last decade and a half, that can't be replaced. And, that means a lot. All things being equal, you align with that. Now, if there's a big difference in the business models and maybe one's a little better for you, that's different. But, I feel like what their offering was for both of them were the same. Not to diminish where High Limits is at, but they're 2 years old. The Outlaws they're getting close to being 50. And, it's tough to beat that tenure. But it really was, there's the way they honored Kevin really, and the Lincoln thing did not hurt either, because this sport and pretty much everything you do in life is all about relationships, and the relationships we built running 4, 5, 6 outlaw races at Lincoln Speedway. When it came time for BAPS maybe have an opportunity, there's relationships that were in place, and they needed to be more comfortable with us. I think we need to be comfortable with them. But they saw that we were doing the right things at Lincoln with the piece of the pie they had down there, the way that was playing out, that they came to us. So, the High Limits created an opportunity for BAPS with the Outlaws coming in, and we're on their schedule for next year. We're getting ready to do our 3rd one, and we're incredibly proud of that.
What needs to improve in this sport? Look, I know that's a broad question, and I have a lot of thoughts on that, which I usually give on my podcast. But in your mind, what are maybe 2 or 3 of things that this sport really needs to improve on to survive and flourish?
I'll kind of answer it a different way. One of the things I think we need to focus on is a solid Saturday night program. Um, Everybody's all about these big events and the specials, and when the Outlaws come to town and when High Limits come to town. But without the solid base of your regular Saturday night program, the rest of that doesn't work quite as well. And I think you kind of see that at Knoxville. I mean, they're working real hard to keep their local racers there. Their purse is just out of this world. I'm happy for them. I don't know how they do it, but I think we all know how they do it. But the fact that they do it is very impressive. So I think we need to stay focused on the Saturday night program. And I don't say that because of Lincoln Speedway, because Lincoln Speedway has a great Saturday night program, but that should be one of our focuses. You know, our fans, our fans are getting older. We need to have more young kids coming out. We track that at both BAPS and Lincoln, and there's more kids than ever. So hopefully we're doing the right things there. Safety wise, I feel like we've come a long way too. The leadership that the Outlaws have, just talking to some of those folks when I was at the World Finals last week, they're focused on, in my opinion, the right things. They're trying to grow the sport, not just on live streaming, not just things that are important to them, but making sure there's plenty of fans in the stands and cultivating that next set of customers.
Are shows too long?
Yeah, I think they are. You asked me earlier, I'm 58 years old. They're too long for me. My son's 30 and he'll come out every now and then, but him and his friends, I see them walking out halfway through the feature. They just don't want it. It's not like the shows are bad. It's just the market's changing. You see what baseball is doing to speed the games up.
Yes.
And we're trying to do that too. I mean, at BAPS, I so much want to implement, a lot more of the features only, but, Colton, it's just not in the mindset that's the best way to go. And, being a racer, I can see it too. I mean, I can see where it'd be nice to run your feature, run your warm-ups, no heats, run a feature and get out of the intermission and go home. But, it's not cheap to race these cars. It's not cheap to get into the races or into races. Maybe you want your heat races. Maybe you want your consi to get those laps. But our fans don't want to see, 12 heat races, 3 consis, and then 4 features. They want a quick show. So how do you get there? I mean, Charlotte, I think they did this last couple of years, but they didn't run warm-ups after their first night, just to shorten the show up. And there was a point where Todd Fisher, when I raced legend cars there, you did not run warm-ups. If it was a rotation. So one week the legends might run warm-ups, next week sports. And maybe that's something we look at. But with every action, there's a reaction. So if you do something to benefit the fans, is that not the best fit for the racers? And that's where the balancing act gets tough.
One of the frustrations for me when just kind of looking down off the mountain and look kind of the landscape of this thing, is it frustrating to you that, let's face it, racing's kind of behind the times? I mean, they don't even take credit cards or pre-sales for every event, which is strange because every other sport does it. It's just an example. Is there some frustration at the lack of change or wanting to evolve? I know you're a guy who, racing extravaganza has changed multiple times over the years, which you also own that. I know you guys have made changes at the speedways. Is that frustrating sometimes that, the lack of evolution to kind of make this thing grow or even sustain itself?
Yeah, I mean, not alarming, but I feel like where the frustration would come from is like we have the racetracks, we have the technology. My better half, April Clark, is all about that pre-sale stuff, and we have done things to implement it, but it hasn't been embraced by the marketplace. Now, you can't blame the marketplace for that. You have to look in the mirror and blame yourself for not providing enough of a call to action for them to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of good that comes out of that pre-sale thing. It helps us make better decisions. If we have an iffy weather event coming up, we can look at pre-sales and say, hey, does this make sense to push envelope or not? We can provide value. At BAPS this Saturday, we have a pretty huge pre-sale for the showdown, and anybody that buys a pre-sale ticket gets in an hour early. That's something you can do for your fans that doesn't cost a whole lot of money and give some value back to. So it's something we have to be looking at. I recently had a nice conversation with Jason Reed at Knoxville about pre-sales, and I feel like they might be a little behind on the times, other than their big events.
Sure.
And they're trying to get there with more pre-sales for their regular Saturday night events, because it helps to make good decisions if there is weather in the area. Because a lot of those guys travel pretty far, so you don't want to pull the trigger too late in the game.
No, we're in a unique situation in central Pennsylvania with like 6 tracks within an hour and a half of each other. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Yep.
So you're 58, you own one Speedway outright, the other one you share ownership. You don't have a car anymore. But how long do you do this? Like how long do you kind of stay in this game and you still grind it out a lot. I understand why you go to bed at 8:30.
Because I'm old. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's because you're old. Because I'll never forget when I went to PRI with you guys. The first year I was going to start Sprint Car Unlimited, and I stayed on a cot in your room, and I roll over and it's 5:30 a.m. and you're on your computer doing God knows what. I know you were working. It wasn't anything weird. You were answering emails and stuff. So I know you put a lot of work in to everything you do. You burn the candle at both ends sometimes. How long do you stay involved in all this?
Let me answer a little differently. That that 5:30 on the computer thing, that just goes back to the commitment that I made to my family. I'm out in Indianapolis. I'm focused on racing at that point, but I can't turn a blind eye to golf cart services. So basically, what I'm doing that morning is looking at deals with our salesmen and trying to figure
Sure.
out good fits for. So that was just a follow through to my commitment to my family. How long do I keep doing it? I love it. I really do. It is a lot. I'm blessed at Lincoln. Jerry Parrish handles all the day to day stuff. He, it gives me the ability to kind of come and go. BAPS probably not quite as much. I'm a little more hands on there with Colton, but still, I can come and go. Probably that question will be answered by April Clark. Because she'll either push or pull back. We're proud grandparents. Our lovely Capri turned 9 months old yesterday, and we love spending time with her. That's going to change the complexion of things for years to come. But I love being part of the sport. I feel like we make a positive influence. I love the relationships we're building and nurturing. I don't know if I'd have it any other way. At this point in my life, I get invited to more funerals than I do weddings. And this year we had 4 weddings in 4 weeks, and every one of them was a racing relationship. Just tells you, kind of what the focus in our life is.
Well, Scott, you guys do a good job at BAPS. You do a good job with all the things you're doing at Lincoln and Racing Extravaganza. And I'm sure you're going to get involved in something else because you can't help yourself. So, but I appreciate you joining the show and look forward to seeing you this weekend at BAPS Motor Speedway.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate the chance to tell my story a little bit. I want to thank you, what you and Mike Mollett do, the behind the scenes to keep our sport growing, what you do personally to keep our fans informed. It's this sport's like a stool. There's a couple legs, and they all have to be propped up. And media is one of them, sponsors one of them, race fans, race teams. If one of them falters, the stool falls over. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for the time to talk about it.
No problem. Thank you very much. That's going to wrap up this edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com deep dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Thank you very much to Scott Gobrecht for joining us on the show. A lot of good stuff there. Also, if you like our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And you can also check out our daily exclusive content at www.sprintcarunlimited.com. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Deep Dive.